cameras flashed like gunfire. Ava Sinclair stood frozen at the center of the ballroom, her sequin dress clinging to her like a second skin, her hand trapped in his iron grip. Everywhere she looked, eyes followed them, hungry, expectant, cruel. Reporters shouted their names. Champagne flutes clinked, and Damiano Moretti was smiling. The kind of smile that made the room hold its breath. The kind of smile that meant danger, even when dressed up in charm. "Let go of me," Ava hissed under her breath, her lips barely moving. To the crowd, they were the perfect couple. To her, this was a cage dressed in velvet. His head dipped until his mouth brushed her ear, his cologne wrapping around her like smoke. "After tonight, you're mine. Don't embarrass yourself by pretending otherwise." Her chest squeezed. Panic, or maybe something worse, something hotter. "It's over after tonight. I can't keep pretending." He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. His thumb stroked across her bare knuckles. Possessive. "Pretending? Ava, if this is pretend, then why do you look at me like you're afraid to drown?" Before she could answer, his lips crashed onto hers. The crowd erupted. Cheers, flashes, gasps. Ava struggled for air, her pulse ricocheting in her veins. She had promised herself it was just an act, just money for survival. But in that kiss was the truth she feared most. He had never planned to let the act end. Would you walk away from him, or would you let him claim you? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're hooked already, hit that like button. It helps me keep bringing you stories like this. Welcome to MG's Love Stories, where passion burns, hearts break, and you can't stop watching. Don't just listen. Feel it. Like this story? Share, subscribe, and let's dive in. 6 months earlier, the apartment smelled faintly of stale coffee and unpaid bills. Ava sat at the chipped kitchen table, staring at the letter in her hand until the words blurred. Final notice. Her chest tightened. She had tried everything. Waitressing double shifts, selling her textbooks, even pawning the gold locket her mother left her. Still, the debt clung to her like a shadow she couldn't shake. Her phone buzzed, startling her. "Lila Bennett, drinks tonight. You need a distraction. Don't argue." Ava sighed, glancing again at the letter. She didn't have the money for drinks, but she also didn't have the strength to refuse her best friend. Lila had been her anchor since college, always dragging her out of her own darkness. That night, the bar downtown hummed with neon light and laughter. Ava nursed a cheap gin and tonic while Lila chattered about her new office crush. Ava tried to listen, but her gaze kept drifting to the far corner booth, where a man sat like he owned the air itself. Sharp suit, dark hair, a presence that swallowed the room. Damiano Moretti. She knew the name, of course. Everyone in Montreal did. The heir to the Moretti fortune, shipping, hotels, whispers of something darker. Some called him a ruthless businessman. Others called him untouchable. Ava only knew that his eyes, when they flicked across the room to meet hers, felt like a spotlight she couldn't escape. Her breath caught. Lila followed her gaze and groaned. "Oh no, forget it, Ava. That man eats girls like you for breakfast." Ava tore her eyes away, cheeks flushing. "I wasn't. Please. You were staring like he's the last chocolate croissant in the bakery." Ava laughed despite herself, but her pulse still thrummed. She told herself it didn't matter. She was invisible to men like him, except when she slipped outside to catch her breath. The night air sharp against her skin, he was there, leaning against a black car, a cigarette between his fingers, watching her like he'd been waiting. "You shouldn't be alone out here." His voice was deep, velvet with an edge of steel. Ava stiffened. "I'm fine. I don't doubt it." His mouth curved, but his eyes stayed serious. "Still, a woman like you a men will notice. Men less disciplined than me." Her throat went dry. She should have walked back inside. She should have ignored him. But something about the way he looked at her, like he'd already stripped away her defenses, rooted her in place. "What do you want?" she whispered. He dropped the cigarette, crushing it beneath his shoe. "A deal." A chill skated down her spine. "What kind of deal?" The kind that saves you from whatever's written on that crumpled letter in your bag. His gaze flicked briefly to her purse. Her heart stuttered. How did he know? Damiano stepped closer, the streetlight catching the sharp line of his jaw. Be my fiancée. Ava blinked. Excuse me? For the world to see, he said, as if it were the simplest thing. An arrangement. You play the part, I handle the rest. You'll be compensated generously. She stared, stunned. You're insane. Maybe. His smile was a blade. But you need money, and I need a fiancé. She should have laughed. She should have run. But instead, the words from that letter burned behind her eyes. Final notice. And the devil himself was offering her salvation. The word hung between them like a loaded gun. Fiancé. Ava's laugh broke sharp in the cold night. You're out of your mind. Probably, Damiano said, his tone maddeningly calm. But you're going to say yes. Her arms folded, more for protection than defiance. Why me? You could snap your fingers and have 100 women lined up, begging to play your bride. His dark gaze dragged over her face. Intense, searching, dangerous. That's exactly why not. They want me for what I have. You don't. Her throat worked. He didn't know how close she was to breaking, how desperate she was for any way out of her debts. She couldn't let him see that. And you just what? Hire a stranger to fool your family. Not just my family, Damiano corrected. Everyone. The board, the investors, the vultures in the press. They need to believe I've settled, that I can play their game. And if I say no? He stepped closer, his height and heat pressing in on her. Then you go back upstairs, pretend the weight of the world isn't crushing you, and wait for those final notices to bleed you dry. Or... His hand brushed hers, deliberate, testing. You take my hand, and I make it all disappear. Ava's breath hitched. Every instinct screamed to run, but her mind flashed with overdue bills, her landlord's threats, the pills her little brother still needed after last winter's pneumonia. She should have said no. Instead, she whispered, "What are the rules?" A flicker of satisfaction crossed his face, quickly hidden. Publicly, you're mine. To touch, to kiss, to hold. In private, there are boundaries. I don't force what isn't given. His voice dropped lower, a husky brush across her skin. Unless you want me to. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She told herself it was anger, not the pull she felt. I'll think about it, she managed. Don't take too long. Damiano stepped back, his gaze lingering like a hand on her throat. Opportunities expire. 2 days later, Ava sat in an office that smelled like leather and power, her knees knocking under the mahogany desk. The paper in front of her was thicker than most of her textbooks had ever been. Damiano leaned casually against the desk, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked like sin dressed in Armani. You'll have a monthly allowance. His finger tapped the page. Enough to clear your debts and keep you comfortable. Comfortable, Ava muttered. The numbers on the page made her dizzy. She'd never seen so many zeros lined up before. You'll attend family dinners, charity galas, business functions. Play the part of the dutiful fiancé. And when this ends, a muscle ticked in his jaw. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Her stomach twisted. She should have demanded a date, an escape clause. Instead, she forced her pen to paper, her signature shaky but real. When she looked up, Damiano was watching her. Not with triumph, but something heavier. Something she couldn't name. You're mine now, he said softly. Her pulse skipped. She hated the way the words slid through her, hot and cold at once. That weekend, he took her to dinner. Not just any dinner. An exclusive rooftop restaurant overlooking the Montreal skyline. The kind of place where the cheapest glass of wine cost more than her rent. Smile, he murmured as they stepped out of the car. She plastered one on, though her hand trembled in his. Cameras popped from the sidewalk, paparazzi, waiting like wolves. Damiano's arm circled her waist, firm and sure. Closer. Her body went rigid. We don't have to overdo it. He bent, his lips brushing the shell of her ear for the photographers to see. Yes, we do. The cameras roared as she leaned instinctively into him, the scent of his cologne making her head spin. His warmth anchored her. Even as every nerve screamed she was in over her head. Inside, she collapsed into her seat, breathless. You enjoy this, don't you? His smirk was slow, lethal. I enjoy being believed. And what about me? His eyes caught hers across the candlelight, dark and unreadable. You'll learn to enjoy it too. Her stomach fluttered, fear, attraction, maybe both. She hated that she couldn't tell the difference. By the end of the night, Ava thought she might actually pull this off. Until she stepped into the restroom and nearly collided with a tall blonde in a red silk dress. Celine Crawford. She recognized her instantly, Damiano's infamous ex. Well, Celine's smile didn't reach her eyes. The mysterious fiancé. Ava stiffened. And you are someone who knows a performance when she sees one. Celine's gaze swept over her like a blade. Be careful, sweetheart. Damiano doesn't play house for long. Ava forced herself to hold her ground, but her hands shook when she returned to the table. Damiano noticed instantly. What did she say to you? Nothing. Ava lied too quickly. His jaw hardened. He leaned forward, voice low. Don't lie to me, Ava. Not now. Not ever. Her breath caught. His intensity was terrifying. But there was a flicker of something else beneath it. Fear. She wasn't the only one with something to lose. Do you think Ava should trust him? Or trust her instincts and run? Drop your thoughts below. And if you're still hooked, hit like so I know you want the next part of their story. The night ended with another performance. Outside the restaurant, paparazzi waited like vultures. Damiano's hand slid to the back of her neck. Ready? He murmured. For what? His mouth pressed against hers. Heat flooded her veins. She told herself it was fake, that she had to play along. But the way his lips claimed hers, the way his hand held her steady like she might collapse, there was nothing fake about it. When he pulled back, her breath came ragged. His eyes burned into hers, dark and certain. Next time, he whispered, you'll kiss me back. Her pulse thundered as the cameras flashed. And for the first time, Ava wasn't sure if the danger she felt came from him or from herself. Ava hadn't expected it to feel like this. She thought pretending would be easier, that she could hold herself apart, that the script would protect her. A smile here, a hand on his arm there. Simple, clean, fake. But Damiano made it messy. Every time his hand brushed hers, every time his gaze lingered, every time he leaned in too close, her body forgot it was an act. The invitation came faster than she was ready for. Dinner at the estate, Damiano told her, tossing the words like they meant nothing. Friday at 8. Don't be late. Estate. The word itself sounded heavy. You mean with your parents? Ava asked, tugging at the hem of her thrift store cardigan. My mother, my stepfather, my sister, and half a dozen cousins who'll be circling like sharks. Dress accordingly. Her pulse quickened. I don't have accordingly. His gaze swept her, slow and calculating. Then we'll fix that. The boutique was everything she'd sworn off in her life. Mirrors that made you look thinner, perfume that clung to your lungs, mannequins draped in silk worth more than her college tuition. Ava stood frozen among racks of satin gowns. I don't belong here. Damiano appeared behind her, his hand sliding to the small of her back, guiding her forward. You belong where I put you. Her stomach flipped. You can't just buy me clothes like I'm a doll. I can, he said smoothly, and I will, unless you'd rather show up to my family's table in that cardigan. Her cheeks flamed. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to scream. Instead, she let the saleswoman drape her in a deep emerald dress that made her eyes shine brighter than she'd ever seen. When Damiano saw her step out of the fitting room, his whiskey-dark gaze stilled. That one, he said, voice low. But, no buts. He stepped closer, adjusting the strap at her shoulder with slow, deliberate fingers. You'll wear it for me. Her heart slammed against her ribs. For me. The words echoed in her skull long after he turned away. Dinner was a battlefield. The Caruso estate sat just outside Montreal, sprawling and elegant, with chandeliers bigger than Ava's entire apartment. The moment they stepped through the door, all eyes turned to her. Damiano's mother, Isabella, glided forward first, statuesque, perfectly poised, her diamond earrings catching the light. She kissed Ava's cheeks with the kind of cool grace that felt like both welcome and warning. "So," Isabella murmured, her Italian accent lilting, "you are the woman who has finally captured my son." Captured, as if she'd lured him into a trap. Ava forced a smile. "I suppose I am." Isabella's gaze sharpened. "We shall see." The rest of the evening was a blur of forks clinking and questions that sliced deeper than knives. "Where did you two meet? How did you know it was love? When is the wedding?" Each time, Ava faltered. Each time, Damiano swooped in, his arm tightening around her waist, his answers smooth and convincing. "Love at first sight," he murmured once, his lips brushing her temple as he spoke. The words sent shivers down her spine. Not because she believed them, but because for half a second, she wanted to. By the time they left, Ava's nerves were shredded. She collapsed against the leather seat of the car, her head falling back. "That was brutal." "You did well," Damiano said simply, his eyes fixed on the road. "I almost told your aunt I met you at the library." His lips curved faintly. "That would have been more believable than what I said." She frowned. "Why?" He glanced at her, his gaze heavy. "Because you don't look like the kind of woman I usually choose." Her chest tightened. "So why did you choose me?" Silence stretched, taut and charged. Finally, he said, "Because you're not like them. You don't want me for the same reasons." His hand gripped the wheel, knuckles pale. "You might even hate me a little. That makes you honest." Her heart stuttered. She told herself not to read into it, not to hope. But later, when he walked her up to her apartment door, his hand lingered on her waist longer than necessary. His eyes locked on hers, dark and unreadable. And for the first time, Ava wondered if the lie they were telling everyone else was slowly becoming the truth for her. 2 weeks later, her face was everywhere. She hadn't agreed to the photo shoot. Damiano had simply arranged it, like he arranged everything else. Now, Ava's image graced the cover of a glossy magazine. Her body curved against Damiano's in a way that looked far too intimate to be staged. The headline screamed, "Damiano Caruso, engaged at last. Meet his mysterious bride." Ava sat on her couch, staring at the glossy page, her stomach twisting. Her phone buzzed with messages from old classmates, neighbors, even her landlord. Everyone wanted to know how she'd landed Montreal's most eligible bachelor. She wanted to scream that it wasn't real, that she was just a girl with too many debts and not enough choices. But when she looked at the photo again, at the way Damiano's hand cupped her jaw, at the way her body leaned into his, she wondered if even she could tell the difference anymore. It happened late one night after another exhausting charity gala. They stumbled into his penthouse, Ava's heels dangling from her hand, her laughter spilling loose for the first time in weeks. "You're impossible," she teased, kicking at his ankle when he smirked. "Do you always have to be so damn perfect in front of everyone?" His smirk faded. "You think it's perfect?" She blinked at the rawness in his tone. "Well, yeah, you're always in control." Damiano stepped closer, his eyes burning into hers. "You think control is easy?" Her breath caught. "Isn't it?" "No," his hand rose, cupping her jaw the same way it had in that photo. "It's a cage. Every move I make, every word I say, watched, measured, twisted." His thumb brushed her lower lip. "And then there's you." Her pulse hammered. "Me? You make me forget the cage exists." And before she could think, before she could remind herself it was all pretend, his lips crashed against hers. This kiss wasn't for cameras. It wasn't for show. It was raw, desperate, hungry. Ava melted, her hands fisting in his shirt, her body arching into him. Every warning in her head screamed to stop, but her heart drowned them out with a single truth. She didn't want to. When he finally tore away, both of them breathless, His forehead rested against hers. "This isn't part of the deal," she whispered. His voice was rough. "It is now. Should Ava pull back before she falls too deep? Or let herself feel what Damiano clearly can't hide anymore? Tell me what side you're on in the comments." Ava learned quickly that Montreal's elite lived in shadows sharper than knives. She could handle whispers at galas, cameras flashing outside restaurants, even the glossy magazine spreads. She could handle pretending because pretending meant she knew the script. But Celine Crawford didn't play by scripts. Celine was fire in a silk dress, sharp cheekbones and sharper words. And Celine had history, the kind that left fingerprints on Damiano's soul. It happened at a fundraiser in Old Montreal. Ava was still dizzy from the lights, the music, the way Damiano's hand rested confidently at the small of her back. She'd just begun to breathe when a voice sliced through the room. Well, Damiano Caruso, engaged." Ava turned and her stomach dipped. Celine Crawford was impossibly beautiful. Raven hair swept into a glossy twist, lips painted scarlet, eyes the color of green glass catching firelight. She wore a gown that seemed designed to remind everyone exactly why she'd once been Damiano's most whispered about lover. Damiano's jaw tightened. "Celine." Her smile was venom wrapped in velvet. "You didn't tell me you'd replaced me so soon." Ava straightened her shoulders, pulse hammering. "I don't think it's your business." Celine's gaze slid over her like she was inspecting a knockoff handbag. "And you must be Ava Sinclair, the mysterious fiancée." "Mysterious?" Ava asked. Celine's smile widened. "Well, no one's ever heard of you before. It's as if you appeared from thin air." The word stung, but Ava forced herself to smile. Sometimes love doesn't need a headline. Damiano's arm tightened around her, a silent warning. Ava's breath hitched as Celine's gaze lingered, knowing, assessing, as if she could smell the truth. That night, back at Damiano's penthouse, Ava paced the living room. "She knows," Ava whispered. "She knows we're lying." Damiano leaned casually against the bar, pouring himself whiskey as if nothing had happened. "Celine knows many things, most of them irrelevant." "She's not irrelevant. She's dangerous." His eyes flicked up to hers, dark and unreadable. "You let her get in your head. That's what she wants." "She was your girlfriend, wasn't she?" Silence. A long, heavy silence. Finally, he said, "Celine doesn't like to lose." "That's not an answer." His jaw flexed, his gaze hardening. "And you don't need one." Ava froze. It was the first time he'd shut her out so cleanly. It shouldn't have mattered. This was business, not love. But still, her chest ached as if he'd slammed a door in her face. Days later, Ava found herself cornered again. This time, in the powder room of another gala. The door clicked shut behind her, and when she looked up, Celine was leaning against the marble sink, perfect as a painting. "Nice dress," Celine said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "Did Damiano pick it out for you?" He always had a taste for dressing his women. Ava's fists clenched. "You think you scare me?" Celine's smile sharpened. "Oh, sweetheart, I don't have to scare you. I just have to wait. Men like Damiano don't settle. He'll get bored. He always does." Her words cut deeper than Ava wanted to admit. "Tell me," Celine whispered, stepping closer. "When he touches you, does it feel real? Or does it feel like practice?" Ava shoved past her, her heart in her throat. But the poison was already inside her veins. That night, Ava couldn't sleep. She tossed in Damiano's guest bedroom, staring at the ceiling. Celine's words echoed. Practice, pretend, temporary. She told herself not to care. But when Damiano appeared at her door, shirt unbuttoned, tie loosened, looking as tired as she felt, her chest tightened anyway. "You've been avoiding me," he said quietly. She swallowed. "I'm tired." His gaze held hers, searching. "You believe her, don't you?" Her throat went dry. "Shouldn't I?" Something dark flickered in his eyes. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "Celine doesn't get to decide who I want," he said, his voice low, dangerous. Then why do I feel like she knows you better than I ever will? The air between them crackled. His hand lifted, hesitated, then cupped her cheek. She doesn't know me anymore, he murmured. But you're starting to. Her heart thudded so loud she thought he might hear it. She wanted to pull away to stay safe. Instead, she leaned into his touch. The next blow came at a charity auction. Ava wore the emerald gown again, her armor. Damiano's hand rested on her back, warm and grounding. For a while, it felt almost normal. Until Celine appeared on the stage, taking the microphone with a glittering smile. I'd like to dedicate tonight's donation, Celine purred, to love, the kind that lasts, the kind that isn't bought. Gasps rippled through the audience. All eyes turned on Celine, on Damiano, on Ava. Ava's chest tightened, her throat closing. Celine's gaze locked with hers, sharp as glass, daring her to break. For a moment, Ava wanted to run, but then she felt Damiano's fingers squeeze her waist. His lips brushed her ear, his voice low enough only she could hear. Smile, Ava. Show them you're mine. And so she did. She turned, cupped his jaw, and kissed him right there in front of everyone. Hard, sure, claiming. The crowd roared. Cameras flashed. When she pulled back, her lips tingled, her breath shallow. And for the first time, she didn't know if the kiss had been part of the plan, or a defiance all her own. Later, when the lights had dimmed and the auction ended, Damiano pressed her against the wall of the limo, his lips brushing hers again, rough and needy. You shouldn't have done that, he rasped. You told me to. Not like that. His forehead pressed to hers, his breath unsteady. That kiss wasn't pretend. Her heart raced. Then what was it? His silence was the only answer she got, and it terrified her more than Celine ever could. Do you think Celine will ruin everything? Or will Ava prove stronger than the games? Drop your theories in the comments speech balloon and don't forget to like and subscribe. Ava told herself she wouldn't let it happen. She repeated it like a prayer, like a warning, like a lifeline. This wasn't real. It was a transaction, a role, a mask she wore because she needed the money. But lies have a way of slipping. And that night, in the quiet of Damiano's penthouse, the line between truth and pretense shattered. The city glowed beneath them, rain streaking the glass like silver veins. Ava stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself, Celine's taunts still poisoning her thoughts. Practice, pretend, temporary. She wanted to believe Damiano when he said otherwise. She wanted to trust the way he looked at her, the way his touch lingered as though it meant more. But wanting was dangerous. She turned at the sound of footsteps. Damiano stood in the doorway, shirt undone, chest bare beneath the dim light. He looked uncharacteristically unguarded, hair tousled, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. You're awake, he murmured. So are you, she shot back, though her voice came out softer than she intended. His gaze lingered on her, heavy, unreadable. Then he stepped closer, slow, deliberate. You kissed me tonight, he said finally. You told me to. Not like that. His voice deepened, velvet and gravel all at once. That kiss wasn't for them. It was for me. Her pulse stuttered. You're imagining things. His hand lifted, tracing the line of her jaw. Am I? Her breath caught. You think I can't tell the difference between a performance and the way your lips tremble when they touch mine? You think I don't feel the way you melt when I hold you? Her defenses cracked, splintering under the weight of his words. This isn't part of the deal, she whispered, though even she didn't believe it anymore. His mouth curved, dark and certain. Then maybe the deal has changed. He kissed her before she could argue. Not the polished, camera-ready kiss from the galas. Not the careful brush of lips for show. This was raw, hungry, possessive. Ava's back hit the glass window, the city lights blazing behind her as his body pressed into hers. His hands slid to her waist, pulling her closer, deeper, until there was no space left to pretend. She gasped against his mouth, her fingers tangling in his hair, tugging him closer when she should have pushed him away. The kiss deepened, molten, and her thoughts unraveled. Celine, the lies, the arrangement, all dissolving until there was nothing left but the fire spreading between them. "Damiano," she breathed, her voice breaking. He pulled back just enough to meet her gaze, his thumb brushing her swollen lip. His eyes burned with a heat that threatened to consume her. "Tell me to stop," he rasped. "If you say it, I will." Her heart thundered. The word stop balanced on her tongue. But when she looked at him, at the raw vulnerability behind his control, she couldn't say it. She shook her head instead. And in that moment, the line they'd drawn shattered completely. They stumbled toward the bedroom, mouths still locked, hands frantic. Clothes fell to the floor in a trail of silk and buttons, each piece stripping away another layer of denial. Ava had never felt like this. Wanted so fiercely, held so tightly, kissed like she was the only thing keeping him alive. And when he whispered her name against her skin, it wasn't Damiano Caruso, the powerful, untouchable heir, speaking. It was the man beneath, the one who bled and broke and longed. It was messy, imperfect, real, and Ava knew she was ruined. Sunlight spilled through the curtains, warm and unforgiving. Ava blinked awake, her body aching with memories of the night before. Beside her, Damiano slept, his arm heavy across her waist. For a moment, she let herself breathe. She traced the line of his jaw with her eyes, memorizing the way he looked unguarded, human. But then reality crashed back. This wasn't supposed to happen. She slipped out of bed, gathering her clothes with trembling hands. By the time Damiano stirred, she was already dressed, her hair pulled back, her heart caged. "Running away?" His voice was rough with sleep. "I'm not running." "Yes, you are." He sat up, the sheets pooling around his waist, his gaze burning into her. "You think last night was a mistake?" Her throat tightened. "Wasn't it?" He rose, crossing the room, stopping just inches from her. "Do you really believe that?" Her chest ached. "It can't happen again." His eyes darkened, his jaw tense. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then, softly but with steel in his tone, he said, "You're mine now, Ava, whether you admit it or not." Her breath caught, and in that moment, she knew two things with terrifying clarity. One, she was already in too deep. Two, Damiano would never let her go. Would you have walked away from Damiano after that night? Or stayed, knowing it could destroy you? Tell me in the comments. And if you're still hooked, don't forget to like and subscribe. The night after the gala was quieter, but Ava's chest still buzzed with adrenaline. She stood in front of the mirror in the guest room, brushing her hair with trembling hands. Every word Damiano had spoken replayed like an echo. "If I'm falling, Ava, I'm not falling alone." She should have been terrified. She was. Yet, beneath that terror bloomed something reckless, something she hadn't felt in years. Desire. She had come here for money, for a contract, for survival. But Damiano Moretti had pulled her into a world where survival meant dancing on the edge of fire. And she wasn't sure she wanted to leave the flames. Damiano's knock on her door came softer than usual, but his presence was anything but gentle. He leaned against the frame, a glass of whiskey in hand, his shirt open at the collar. His dark hair was mussed, his jaw shadowed with stubble. "Can't sleep?" he asked, his voice low, rich. Ava shook her head, still clutching the brush like a weapon. "Too much on my mind." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The quiet click echoed in her chest. "About me?" She laughed nervously. "You'd love that, wouldn't you?" "I don't need to love it." He crossed the room, setting the glass on the nightstand. "I already know it." His confidence made her skin prickle. He stood close enough that the faint smell of whiskey and sandalwood wrapped around her like a cloak. "Damiano," she started, warning in her tone. But he didn't touch her. Not yet. His eyes searched hers with the intensity of a man memorizing scripture. "You're thinking of walking away." Her throat tightened. This was supposed to be an act. And now, his voice was softer now, almost vulnerable. Her silence said everything. Damiano didn't wait for permission. He reached up, brushing his knuckles along her jaw, tilting her face toward him. "Tell me to stop." Ava's lips parted, but no words came. So he kissed her. It wasn't the staged, performative kiss from before. It wasn't the calculated move of a man protecting his reputation. It was raw, fierce, hungry. His hand tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, while his other gripped her waist as though he feared she'd vanish. And God, Ava kissed him back. Every warning in her head screamed at her to pull away, to remember the contract, to remember who he was. But her heart, her body, they melted into him like wax under flame. When he finally pulled back, both of them were breathless. This is no longer pretend. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "You're dangerous." His lips curved into something between a smile and a growl. "So are you, Ava Sinclair." The ringing phone shattered the moment. Damiano cursed under his breath, pulling it from his pocket. His expression darkened instantly. "Ettore," he muttered. Ava stiffened. "Your rival." He didn't answer, just pressed the phone to his ear. "Moretti." Ettere's smooth Italian accent slid through the line like silk laced with poison. "Enjoying your new fiancée?" Damiano's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "I want what you always steal. Power, loyalty, and maybe a pause." Then a chuckle. "The girl." Damiano's gaze flickered to Ava, protective fire blazing. "She's off limits." Ettere's laugh was cold. "Everything has a price, Damiano. Even the things you swear you die to protect." The call ended abruptly. Silence stretched heavy between them. Ava swallowed hard. "He knows about me." Damiano nodded, eyes burning with something primal. "And that makes you his target." The days that followed blurred into a whirlwind. Damiano insisted Ava stay close, assigning guards she tried to shake off but couldn't. His protectiveness both infuriated and disarmed her. Lila, her best friend, called in the middle of one tense afternoon. Ava slipped into a quiet corner of the mansion to answer. "Girl, what is going on? You've disappeared off the face of the earth," Lila said, her voice sharp with worry. Ava hesitated. She wanted to spill everything. The contract, the kisses, the Mafia whispers. But how could she explain Damiano without sounding insane? "I'm fine," Ava said weakly. "Fine," Lila scoffed. "You sound like you're hiding a body, or sleeping with one." Ava froze. "Oh my God," Lila gasped. "You're in love." Ava ended the call before her friend could pry further, her heart racing. She wasn't in love. She couldn't be. Could she? That evening, Damiano insisted on taking her out of the mansion. For heir, he claimed. They dined in a discreet, candlelit restaurant tucked away in old Montreal. For a while, it almost felt normal. They laughed. They teased. Ava caught glimpses of a man beneath the armor, one who quoted poetry in Italian and confessed he couldn't cook to save his life. But as they left, the illusion shattered. A dark car screeched to a stop across the street. Two men in black stepped out, guns gleaming under the dim light. Damiano shoved Ava behind him, drawing his own weapon from beneath his jacket. The street erupted in chaos, screams, shattering glass, the sharp crack of gunfire. Ava crouched low, heart pounding as she watched Damiano move with deadly precision. He wasn't just a businessman. He was a soldier, predator. One attacker fell. The other fled, leaving a note pinned to the car door with a knife. Damiano ripped it free, his hands shaking with rage. It read, "Everything has a price. Signed, Ettore Romano." Back at the mansion, Ava's voice finally broke. "This isn't just business, is it? This is war." Damiano set the note aflame in the fireplace, watching it curl into ash. "You should have walked away when you had the chance." Her breath hitched. "Do you want me to?" He turned to her, eyes blazing with something raw and unguarded. "No, I want you here, even if it kills me, even if it kills us both." The admission tore through Ava's chest like lightning. She should have been running for her life. Instead, she stepped toward him, her hand brushing his. And in that charged silence, Ava realized the truth. The act was over. They weren't pretending anymore. The mansion had grown colder after the attack. Guards patrolled the hallways, steel replaced silence, and even the shadows seemed to shift with menace. Ava felt trapped. Protected, yes, but caged all the same. Damiano barely let her out of his sight. When he wasn't with her, he was on the phone, speaking in hushed Italian, the tension in his shoulders hard enough to crack marble. She hated how much she wanted him. She hated how much she needed him. But what terrified her most was the realization that someone else wanted her too. It started with a letter slipped under her bedroom door. Smooth cream stationery, her name written in a sharp, elegant script. Eva, do you ever wonder what it would feel like to be free of his chains? Dinner. Midnight. The glass terrace at Le Mirage. Ettore Romano. Her heart hammered. Ettore. How had he reached her inside Damiano's fortress? She should have burned the letter. Should have torn it to shreds. Instead, she hid it in the drawer, her fingers trembling. When Damiano knocked later to check on her, she nearly jumped. His gaze lingered, suspicious, but he said nothing. That night, long after the mansion had gone quiet, Ava found herself slipping into a sleek black coat, her breath shallow as she climbed into a cab. Le Mirage glittered like a crown against Montreal's skyline. Ava stepped onto the glass terrace, the city sprawling beneath her like scattered jewels. Ettore was waiting, tall, refined, his dark hair perfectly styled, his suit tailored like second skin. He looked less like a rival and more like temptation personified. "You came," he said smoothly, kissing her hand before she could protest. "I shouldn't have," Ava muttered. "Maybe not, but you did." His smile was knowing, dangerous. "That means something." The table was already set, wine poured, candles flickering in the night breeze. Ettore gestured for her to sit. She hesitated, then did. "You think Damiano can keep you safe?" Ettore asked, swirling his glass of red wine. "He can't. Not from me. Not from what's coming." Ava stiffened. "Why involve me at all? You're not just anything." His eyes gleamed. "You're his weakness, and weaknesses can be turned into weapons or into power." A chill crawled up her spine. "You want me to betray him?" Ettore leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I want you to choose yourself. Damiano drags you into danger because he can't let go. But His fingers brushed hers, bold, confident. "I could give you freedom, protection, a life where you're not just an accessory to a war." Ava's pulse thundered. Ettore was seductive, persuasive. He spoke to the part of her that craved safety, that longed for a life beyond this violent game. But deep down, she knew the truth. Nothing about Ettore's world would ever be safe. The city lights reflected in Ettore's eyes as he leaned closer, their faces only inches apart. "Let me show you what it feels like to be chosen for who you are," he murmured. Ava froze, her breath caught, her lips parting. But before she could respond, strong hands yanked her back. "Enough, Damiano." He stood like a storm at the edge of the terrace, his gun holstered but his fury barely contained. His gaze cut through Ettore like a blade. "You think you can touch what's mine?" Damiano's voice was a growl, low and lethal. Ettore smirked, unbothered. "Yours? Or an actress you bought to play pretend?" Damiano's jaw flexed. "Leave. Now." Ettore rose, calm as ever, his smile sharp. "This city is mine, Moretti. And soon." His eyes slid to Ava, deliberate. "So will she be." He left, footsteps echoing like gunshots. The silence that followed was unbearable. Damiano's chest rose and fell, his fury vibrating in the air. Ava couldn't meet his eyes. "You disobeyed me," he said finally, his voice quieter than she expected. Too quiet. You went to him." Ava's throat tightened. "He contacted me. I just wanted answers." Damiano stepped closer, towering over her. His hand braced against the glass behind her head. "You don't understand what you've risked. Ettore doesn't want answers. He wants to break you, To use you against me. Her voice cracked. And what if he's right? What if this was a mistake? This whole thing? Damiano froze, pain flashing across his features. For a moment, he wasn't the untouchable Moretti heir. He was a man, raw, vulnerable, desperate. Don't say that, he whispered. Damiano! Before she could finish, his lips crushed hers, rough and desperate. It wasn't the fire of passion this time. It was fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of being betrayed. Ava melted and fought all at once. When he pulled back, his forehead pressed against hers. His voice was a broken rasp. Don't ever run to him again, because if I lose you, Ava. His grip tightened at her waist, trembling. I lose everything. Later that night, Ava lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Damiano slept beside her, his arm heavy across her waist. Ettari's words haunted her. Freedom, protection, choice. Damiano's touch burned into her skin. Don't ever run to him again. And Ava realized something terrifying. No matter which man she chose, she was already at war. The next morning, the mansion felt suffocating. Guards lined every hallway. Whispers of strategy in Italian echoed through the corridors, and Damiano paced like a caged lion. Ava watched from the balcony above the main hall, her heart torn between the two men who now held her fate in their hands. Ettari's words still clung to her. Freedom. Choice. Damiano's kiss still burned against her lips. Don't ever run to him again. And she hated that part of her wanted both. By afternoon, Damiano called for her. Come with me, he ordered. His tone clipped, but his eyes softer than he wanted to admit. Where? She asked warily. To see the truth. The drive was silent, the tension between them heavy as the Montreal skyline gave way to industrial warehouses on the outskirts of the city. When the car stopped, Ava's breath caught. Inside the sprawling complex, men in tailored suits moved like soldiers, handling shipments, barking orders in Italian. Armed guards patrolled every corner. This, she whispered, stepping closer to Damiano. This isn't just business. No, he admitted. It's survival. He guided her through the heart of his empire, shipments of luxury goods, encrypted files being moved between rooms, conversations about territory and loyalty. Everywhere they went, men bowed their heads at Damiano. They feared him, respected him, followed him. You think Ettari offers freedom, Damiano said as they walked. But men like him only understand chains. He would cage you in velvet and call it liberty. At least with me, he stopped, turning to face her. At least with me, you'll know the truth. You'll never have to wonder who you belong to. Ava swallowed hard, her pulse racing. That's not freedom either. His gaze burned into hers. Maybe not, but it's safer than being his. As they returned to his car, Ava spotted a locked steel door guarded by two men. Something about it pulled at her curiosity. What's in there? She asked. Damiano's expression darkened. Things you don't need to see. That's not an answer. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, almost reluctantly, he waved the guards aside and unlocked the door. Inside was a vault, stacks of cash, ledgers, weapons, and a wall of photographs. Faces, names, alliances, betrayals. Her stomach twisted. It was a war map painted with lives. Now you see why you can't leave, Damiano said, his voice low. You know too much. Ettari knows it too. That makes you both a liability and a target. Ava turned to him, her voice trembling. So what am I to you, Damiano? A pawn? A shield? Or something else? His silence was heavy. Then, finally, you're the only thing in this world I can't afford to lose. That night, back at the mansion, Ava stood alone on the balcony, staring at the stars. The city glowed below, vast and indifferent. She felt Damiano's presence before he spoke. You're quiet, he murmured, stepping beside her. I don't know who you are anymore, she confessed. The man who kisses me like I'm the only thing keeping him alive, or the man who runs an empire built on fear. He flinched at her words, then moved closer, his hand grazing hers on the railing. What if I'm both? Her eyes shimmered. Then how do I choose? Damiano's answer wasn't words. It was the way he tilted her face to his. The way his lips claimed hers in a kiss that was desperate, raw, and filled with everything he couldn't say. She kissed him back, fiercely, until her body shook with need and her heart begged her to surrender. But when they pulled apart, Ava whispered the truth that haunted her. I'm scared, Damiano, not of Ettore, not even of dying. I'm scared of what loving you will turn me into. The next day, the war escalated. Ettore struck again, this time not with bullets, but with manipulation. Ava's phone buzzed with an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Ava, Ettore's voice purred. Did you enjoy your field trip into Damiano's kingdom? Did he show you the bodies under the crown? Don't call me, she snapped, but he ignored her. You see it now, don't you? Damiano doesn't want a partner. He wants possession. You'll never be more than the chain he wears around his wrist. But with me, his voice softened. With me, you'd be free to breathe, to be more than a pawn in his war. Her throat tightened. And how do I know you're not lying? You don't. That's what makes it thrilling. The call ended, leaving Ava shaken. When Damiano found her minutes later, pale and trembling, she lied. It was just Lila checking in. But deep inside, guilt gnawed at her. She was already keeping secrets. That night, tension boiled over. Ava stormed into Damiano's office, her voice sharp. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being pulled between lies and danger. I need to know who I am to you, because if I'm just a pawn, I'll walk away. Damiano rose from behind his desk, his eyes blazing. Walk away? After everything? After every time I've put my body between you and death? You put me here in the first place, she shot back. If you hadn't dragged me into this, Ettore wouldn't even know my name. His fists clenched. And yet you came willingly. Silence. The truth hung heavy. Finally, Damiano crossed the room, stopping inches from her. His voice dropped low and guttural. You want to know what you are to me, Ava? He grabbed her hand, pressing it to his chest, where his heartbeat thundered. You're the only thing that makes this worth surviving. The only thing that makes me human. The confession broke her. Tears blurred her vision as his mouth crashed onto hers, the kiss rough and consuming. She clung to him, every fiber of her body screaming yes, even as her mind whispered no. When they finally tore apart, breathless and trembling, Ava realized she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. She wasn't pretending anymore, and neither was he. The mansion didn't sleep anymore. Every night was filled with the shuffle of guards, the low hum of strategy meetings, the faint click of guns being loaded. But inside Ava's chest, a louder war raged. Damiano's words from the night before echoed, You're the only thing that makes me human. And Ettere's voice whispered through her memory, With me, you'd be free. Both men had set her on fire, and whichever flame she chose, she knew she'd be burned. The next morning, Ava stood in the garden, staring at the roses. Their crimson petals reminded her of Damiano's kiss. Dangerous, intoxicating, impossible to forget. Lila's voice rang through her phone, grounding her for a brief moment. You sound like someone standing on the edge of a cliff, Lila said. Maybe I am, Ava admitted. Then ask yourself, who's waiting at the bottom, and who's pushing you off? Before Ava could respond, the line clicked dead. Her phone screen lit up with another message. Unknown number. Ettore again. This time, no silky invitation. Just a photo. Her. From last night. Standing on the balcony with Damiano. The caption. He's not the only one watching you. She stormed into Damiano's study, slamming the phone onto his desk. He's tracking me, taking pictures. How did your guards not see this? Damiano's jaw tightened as he examined the photo. His knuckles whitened. He's taunting us, he growled, trying to prove I can't protect you. Maybe he's right, Ava snapped. His head whipped up, eyes blazing. Careful. No, you be careful, she shot back. You keep saying you're protecting me, but all I see are cages and enemies. Maybe Ettari's right. Maybe I'll never be more than your weakness." The words struck deeper than any bullet. For a moment, Damiano looked less like the untouchable Moretti heir and more like a man gutted. "Is that what you think?" he asked, voice rough. Ava's breath shook. "I don't know what to think anymore." That evening, a package arrived for Ava. No guards had seen who left it at the gates. Inside, a silver necklace with a small diamond heart. And a note. "Ava, meet me tomorrow at noon. One chance. One choice. Ettari." Her hands trembled as she hid it from Damiano. Later, as he held her in bed, she lay awake staring at the necklace hidden beneath her pillow. His arm around her waist should have made her feel safe. Instead, she felt trapped between fire and smoke. The next day, Ava slipped away under the excuse of visiting Lila. Her pulse hammered as she walked into the quiet cafe Ettari had chosen. He was waiting, dressed in gray, his smile warm and calculated. "You came," he said, rising to kiss her cheek. "I need to know what you want from me," Ava said flatly. He gestured for her to sit. "I already told you. Choice. Freedom. With Damiano, you'll always be a pawn. With me, you'll be a queen." She narrowed her eyes. "And what happens when queens stop being useful in your world?" Ettari's smile didn't falter. "They never stop being useful. They become legends." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I don't want to own you, Ava. I want to rule beside you." Her chest tightened. It was everything she thought she wanted: power, freedom, no chains. But his eyes betrayed him. There was hunger there, possession, a different kind of cage. As Ava left the cafe, her phone buzzed. "Damiano, where are you?" Her heart stopped. She typed back quickly. "With Lila." The lie burned her tongue even though it was written. When she returned to the mansion, Damiano was waiting in the foyer, his expression unreadable. "How was Lila?" Ava froze. His tone was casual, but his eyes knew. "She's fine," Ava forced out. He nodded slowly. "Good." Then he stepped closer, brushing her cheek with his hand. His touch was tender, but his voice was steel. "Just remember, Ava, betrayal cuts deeper than bullets." That night, Ava found herself unable to breathe. She slipped into the library, curling on a leather chair, trying to block out the storm in her chest. Damiano found her there as he always did. "You don't sleep," he said softly. "Neither do you," she whispered back. He sat across from her, the firelight etching shadows across his sharp features. For a long time, they sat in silence, the unspoken thick between them. Finally, he spoke. "You think I chained you, but the truth is," he exhaled, almost a laugh. "You chained me. From the moment you walked into my world, I've been bound to you. Everything I do now, I do with you in mind." Her eyes stung. "Damiano, I can't lose you, Ava. Not to him, not to anyone. If you walked away, I'd burn the world to keep you." His words terrified her. They thrilled her. They undid her. And before she could stop herself, she whispered, "Then what if I'm already lost?" Damiano stiffened, his gaze searching hers. "What do you mean?" Ava's lips parted, but the truth stuck in her throat. She couldn't confess she'd met Ettari. Couldn't confess the necklace hidden in her drawer. Before she could answer, a gunshot shattered the night. Glass exploded from the library window. Guards shouted in Italian. Damiano shoved Ava to the floor, covering her with his body as bullets riddled the shelves. When the chaos quieted, he pulled her up, fury blazing. "It's him," Damiano growled. "Ettari is done sending warnings. He wants war." Ava's heart pounded as she clung to him, and for the first time she realized this wasn't just about Damiano and Ettari anymore. Her next choice could tip the balance of everything. The night was velvet and electric. Toronto's skyline glittered like shards of a broken crown, the CN Tower glowing in the distance. Ava stood on the Moretti estate balcony, her silk dress whipping gently against her legs, the taste of champagne still lingering on her lips. The engagement party was finally over. Guests had gone. Enemies had been watched, alliances made fragile. And yet her heart thundered louder than the music that had only hours ago filled the grand halls. Because Damiano had asked her one question that she hadn't been prepared for. Stay. Not just for tonight. Not just until the deals are done. Stay forever. It hadn't been part of the plan. Pretend fiancé, a tidy sum of money, freedom from debt. That was all. She wasn't supposed to fall for him. She wasn't supposed to crave his touch, to feel his eyes burn through her like a storm fire. But she did. God help her, she did. And now, standing here, she realized. She didn't know how to answer. Damiano appeared in the doorway, no tie, shirt undone at the throat. His dark hair slightly mussed as though he'd run his hands through it too many times. He looked dangerous and exhausted, like a king who had battled his enemies and won, but at a price. "You're hiding," he said, voice rough, Italian accent wrapping around her like velvet. "I'm thinking," Ava replied, arms crossed, her nerves barely held together. "There's a difference." He stepped closer. "You always run when things matter most." Her jaw tightened. "And you always demand without asking what it costs me." His eyes flashed, but then softened. "Ava, I have built empires. I have fought men who would slit my throat for a seat at the table. But none of it matters if you are not beside me. That is the cost I'm willing to pay." The sincerity cut her open. She hated him for it and she loved him for it. But before she could answer, the door slammed open. Ettore. He stood there, immaculate in a charcoal suit, eyes sharp and glittering with something dangerous. "So it's true," Ettore said smoothly, though his tone was laced with venom. The king bows to the girl, Damiano Moretti, undone by a Canadian waitress who barely knows this world. Ava froze. "What are you doing here?" Ettore smirked. "Finishing what should have ended long ago." Damiano stepped protectively in front of her, body tensing like a panther ready to strike. "You step 1 foot closer, Romano, and it will be your last." Ettore's laugh was low, mocking. "Always so dramatic. But this isn't about me or you. It's about her." He turned his gaze on Ava, sharp as knives. "Do you even know who you're lying beside at night, Carmia? Do you know the blood he's spilled, the deals he's made? You think this is love? It's a cage. And he'll never let you leave." Her heart hammered, because part of her, just a small, traitorous part, wondered if Ettore was right. "You're wrong," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "Am I?" Ettore stepped forward, ignoring the warning snarl in Damiano's throat. "He doesn't want a partner. He wants possession. And if you don't believe me, ask him why your name is already etched on the contract his father forced him to sign." Ava's head snapped toward Damiano. "What contract?" Damiano's jaw flexed. Silence stretched. "Answer her," Ettore pressed. "Tell her the truth, that your engagement isn't just pretend anymore, that it's binding, legally, financially, forever." Ava felt her chest tighten. "Damiano," finally he spoke, voice low, heavy. "It's true. My father demanded proof. He drafted a contract. Marriage within 3 months or I lose everything. But Ava, listen to me." Her stomach twisted. "So all this, your confession, your proposal, it's not because you love me. It's because you need me." Pain flickered in his eyes. "No. Started that way, maybe. But somewhere between the lies and the deals, I fell. Ava. Harder than I've ever fallen in my life. You're not my contract. You're my heart." But she staggered back, shaking her head, tears burning. "I don't know what's real anymore." Ettore smiled like he'd won. "Exactly. And when you're ready to walk away, Ava, remember, there are men who would give you freedom. Men like me." That was the final straw. Damiano lunged, fists colliding with Ettore's jaw in a brutal punch. They clashed, power against power, blood and rage staining the marble floor. Ava screamed, trying to pull them apart, her heart tearing with fear. Finally, Damiano pinned Ettore against the railing, breathing hard, one arm cocked to strike again. "If you ever come near her again, I'll end you." Ettore spat blood, smirking. "Then you'll prove me right. You'll never escape what you are. He stumbled off into the night, leaving chaos behind. Ava stood trembling, torn between fury and heartbreak. You can't keep doing this, she said, voice breaking. Fighting wars and dragging me into them. I wanted this to be pretend, Damiano. I never asked for forever. He turned to her, blood streaking his jaw, eyes desperate. And yet forever is what I want with you. Silence. Only the sound of the wind. Ava, he said, stepping closer, softer now. I can burn this contract. I can walk away from the empire. I'll risk it all if it means keeping you. Just say the word. Say you'll stay. Her tears spilled over. She thought of her debt, her loneliness, the girl she'd been before all this began. And she realized, somewhere along the line she had fallen too. She reached for his hand. Don't you dare burn it. Don't you dare walk away. If I'm staying, it's not because of contracts or empires. It's because, her breath hitched, because I love you. His arms wrapped around her instantly, crushing her against him. His lips crashing onto hers with the fire of 1,000 storms. It was desperate, raw, intoxicating. The kiss of a man who would tear down kingdoms for her, and the kiss of a woman who had finally chosen her fire, even if it burned. When they broke apart, breathless, he pressed his forehead against hers. Say it again. I love you, she whispered, smiling through tears. Damiano Moretti, I love you. And for the first time in his life, he smiled like a man free. 6 months later, the Moretti estate was quieter. The empire was still his, but Damiano had drawn new lines. Cleaner, sharper, less drenched in blood. Ettore had vanished from Toronto, though rumors whispered he'd return. But Ava didn't care. She stood in front of the mirror, smoothing the lace of her wedding dress, her heart soaring. Lila burst in, grinning. Are you ready? Because your dangerously handsome Italian fiancé looks like he's about to break down the door if you make him wait another second. Ava laughed, happiness bubbling over. She walked out to where Damiano waited, black suit perfect, eyes burning only for her. And in that moment, she knew. Their story had started as a lie, but it had become the truest thing she'd ever known. Forever wasn't a cage. Forever was him. And as their lips met beneath the glow of the chandeliers, the world outside could burn. And that's how Ava and Damiano's love story turned from a dangerous lie into forever. But what do you think? Was it love, or was it fate? Would you take the deal if it meant risking your heart? Don't just click away. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear every wild theory and what you do in Ava's shoes. If you felt the fire in this story, hit that like button. It keeps more stories like this alive. Subscribe so you don't miss the next love that burns, breaks, and rebuilds. And share this story with someone who loves the kind of romance you can't stop watching. This has been MG's Love Stories. Until next time, keep feeling it.